Okay, they do. How are you doing, people? How are you? How are you? It's 8 o'clock. It's Tuesday evening, which means one thing. It's the Sports Therapy Association podcast, recorded live, normally on Facebook, but unfortunately, because of Facebook changing its algorithms every kind of 2 weeks, then we can't go out to Facebook Live tonight. So we are going out solely to YouTube. But normally, if you want to join us live, then you can either go to the Sports Therapy Association Facebook page and you'll find a link there, or you can go to YouTube as well. Tonight, it's just via YouTube. So I'm very keen to see people start coming in via YouTube. And if you do come in and join us, then you are welcome to leave comments. Comments will come up onto the page. Obviously, you can't appreciate this if you listen to the podcast, but Catherine Reimer has just come in. Hello from YouTube. Sounds like it's miles away. So Catherine's here and I can bring that up. Hey, Catherine, thanks for coming. Oh, nice photo. This is the other thing as well. Networking, it's great. You can bring up your logo, company logo, or like Catherine, you can bring up a picture of somebody who has just done some hand painting. So it's totally up to you, but it'd be great to have you along. Obviously, if you listen to the podcast, that's amazing as well. Thank you for downloading it, listening to it. Do please subscribe so you get notification. We are out every week. We've been out for 86 weeks. Started up originally because of COVID and soft tissue therapists needing to talk to each other, which is one of the kind of the benefits of COVID. We've all come together now as a fantastic group, which is very good for not just the industry, but also the patient. And we've continued. We haven't stopped. We've got no plans to stop either. One thing we have changed, if this is new to you, is we've started doing a topic per month. So, for example, in January, the topic was CrossFit. And we had some excellent guests coming in to talk about CrossFit, about the myths, the misconceptions, how to recognize if your client is getting injured for particular reasons, who to recommend they go to see, how to tell if a CrossFit gym is kind of with good coaches or maybe a little bit old school. And it was fantastic. In February, where we are now, we have now moved to the topic women's health. And last week, in case you missed it, in 86, we were joined by Dr. Fiona Higgs and Debs Thurlow-Rowley, who talked to us about a fantastic new project they've coming, actually, which is involving a podcast as well. Women in Sports Therapy, or WIST, as it shall now be known, hashtag WIST. And they broke down a little introduction to women's health, basically, and why it's such an important topic for any gender therapist to be aware of, to recognize, to ask questions which you might feel a little bit kind of taboo-y and you don't think it's relevant, but it so is. And between the two of them, they did a grand job in explaining that to us through personal experience and through people they've seen. And there's full details. If you ever want to see show notes for the episodes, then go along to the STA website, which is thesta.co.uk, or you can go along to our host Podbean. All the show notes are there with links to relevant websites, a little bit of details about the guest, etc., etc. So there we go. People are still coming in. I'm so glad you found YouTube, Facebook people. It seems to be working okay. So I'm just going to say quickly hello to Sabrina Monaghan. Thanks for joining us, Sabrina. Glad you found us. Melissa Bond has said hello. Hello, Melissa. Thanks for joining us. This floodgates are open now. Works on YouTube. Who needs your Facebook? Just break down again, will you? And just die. That's a bit much. But anyway, Becky Carroll, nice to see you, Becky. Glad you made it in. And Louise Aker is as well. The regulars, the founders. Fantastic. Great to see you all. And Gary Benson's here as well, Gary. Founder of the STA is with us as well. So if you've got any questions, grab Gary now while you can, rather than ringing him at midnight. Right, so Women's Health Part 2. Very excited to bring up one of the leading educators in the game, and we're going to be talking about the menopause transition. And I've just been talking off air with this person about holding my hands up, basically saying, right, I've got no questions, just educate me and the listeners. Okay, everything I've kind of think I know is probably wrong, but obviously it's a hugely important topic and part of women's health. And Jenny Burrell of Burrell Education is going to come up now and tell us all about it. So it's going to be a heavy one. If you're listening live or listening to the podcast, then get your pen and paper ready. Remember, this is free CPD. And if you are a member of the STA, then you can write in and put this down as part of your STA CPD. Just send a little note to Gary and just say, look, I listened to that hour and I picked this up. Done. Okay. Why? Don't pay for all these courses. There are courses out there which are amazing, but don't forget the free stuff as well. Right, that's it. So without further ado, remember, if you've got questions, people, just bring them up on screen. I've told Jenny she can stop me and say, oh, there's a good question there from Catherine. Becky, relying on you as always, bring them up. But now I shall bring up Jenny Burrell. Hey, Jenny, how you doing?
Hello, I am fantastic.
It's great. How lovely. I believe it as well. You sound fantastic. That's good to hear. Thanks so much for joining us. First time on the podcast, which is amazing. But we've obviously, I think some of the members have not maybe, has anyone done a course from Burrell Education? Let me know if you have, if you're joining us. But I know I've spoken to people who have. Fantastically good reputation. Which, how do I say this? It's nothing new, is it? You've been around for a while, haven't you? Been in the game for a bit.
Okay. 2007. Burrell Education was born on the 27th of February 2007.
22nd.
The 27th of February.
7th, right. I was going to say 22nd is my birthday. Oh, so we're coming up to a birthday then, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Happy birthday in advance then. How exciting.
Yeah.
It's always fun when I have to say how long someone's been around, but it is a compliment. Because well, as we talk about now, you've probably seen a lot of changes both in what you're saying and what people are receptive to and what we're talking about. So very excited. For people who don't know about Burrell Education, then I'd love you to share a little bit of how it started up, how you got into women's health, why you saw that as a topic that needed education. So take it away.
So I sort of straddle two worlds, which is fitness, wellness, women's wellness, and soft tissue therapy. So originally I started with one postnatal course in the back room of a Fitness First on Tottenham Court Road.
I know it well.
Had one postnatal course, and then that continued. Unfortunately, I got unwell when I was about 39, 40, and ended up having a hysterectomy when I was 40. And that really changed my emphasis from working in fitness primarily to then education. And that's when I really put both feet in the circle of Burrell Education. And so really since that point, really the last 10 years, I've been full on with education. But Burrell Education is unashamedly an education company led by women. It's virtually all female staff, and all the courses are support professionals who want to work in women's health. So pregnancy, movement, wellness, birth prep, postnatal, the same, movement, wellness, pelvic health. So we have a pelvic health program called Holistic Core Restore. And then in terms of soft tissue therapy, then we have education for diastasis rehab, scar rehab, hysterectomy and C-section recovery, and pregnancy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I mean, we were just talking about the pandemic. I was very glad to have the fitness movement education, the online courses, when the pandemic hit. There's one thing that I've always said to everybody taking the soft tissue therapy courses with us is that, we're actually soft tissue therapists are part of that wellness continuum that involves movement. So whenever someone just takes a soft tissue therapy course, it's just like, but what about the movement? And many of the people who have learned with Burrell Education also have a movement certification, and they were able to really zig that zag in the pandemic and serve people through movement, via Zoom.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's very useful to hear. I mean, that's how this whole podcast was kind of born, really, about people suddenly having a common problem, which is a great way of bringing people together. Just, you've got the same problem. Suddenly people start talking. Whilst things are going good, people don't talk. No, you're my competition. I've got a problem. Please help. So that's how it came into it. And that's kind of one of the benefits, isn't it, of COVID? It's kind of really changed our industry for the better, which ultimately, like you say, is if we're all kind of working together, then it's going to provide a better service for the client. Melissa Bond here has said, I am one of the graduates from Jenny's soft tissue therapy course. And I can see in her writing, she said that with great passion and happiness. Thanks for sharing, Melissa. Tottenham Court Road. Wow, I did my YMCA fitness instructor there in '95. Right at the end there, beautiful part of the world.
Halcyon
God, that's
days.
taking me back. Smashing. Becky Cowler just said, "Zig that zag," stealing that. She does that, Becky. Yeah, careful what you say. If there's anything patented. One thing I must say from your website, Burrell Education, is it just Burrell Education or is there a hyphen in there? I can't remember. Burrell
No,
Education?
no.
BurrellEducation.com.
Yeah.
It's, again, I like pointing this out to therapists. We are going to have a business month at some point. I'm not sure when. And I like pointing this out. I was saying this with Michaela Breeze, the Olympian coach and Olympian herself twice. When I see something which is just a lovely website or lovely feed, then I point it out. And your website, again, it's the language. It exudes like, yes, we are together and we're going to solve it. I love the way you say I'm paraphrasing it, it's not advertising, but we help female clients or women both in the good times and the bad times, which I thought was really powerful. Because if you're going to work with someone, you need to be supporting there for both. Yeah, we can rejoice and you've got your PBs, but we can also be a team when it's not so bad, because that's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a great website, and definitely, apart from the education and the aspects there, go and see how it's laid out. It's really nicely done. It's really friendly. I don't know who does your website, maybe yourself or maybe you've got someone, but it's a good show.
Well, actually, I'm just about to relaunch it.
Right.
It. It's so old. It's so old. When I look at it, I mean, it's incredible to hear you say that, because when I look at it, I'm like, God, this is so old.
It's the words, though. It's the way you're communicating. I just like it. I suppose it's a personal thing. That looks good. Looks good. Right. So we are talking about the Meno transition, and off air, I was kind of saying, right, you're Burrell Education. It's got it in the name there. Educate me. I know a little bit, but I want you to start off. A lot of the people, especially listening to the podcast, they probably don't know much more than, you get a little bit hot. Can you open the window, please? That's probably as far as the knowledge goes, particularly the men, you know?
Yeah.
And there's more to it than that, isn't there?
Yeah, of course. And this Meno transition, the menopause transition, well, we've got perimenopause, sort of before. We've got the actual menopause, is that you haven't had a bleed, you haven't menstruated for 1 year, and the day after that 1 year, you are now into post-menopause, and then you're in post-menopause till the end of your life. So really, you could be experiencing those endocrine, those hormonal fluctuations, you know, from kind of mid to late 30s till the end. The end. So the Meno transition is, well, for most women, like the vast majority of her life. Which
kind of makes it, straight away you brought it to, it's very significant, because it's changing the person basically. Once you get endocrine system involved in hormones, then you're changing a lot of it. Is how everything's going to work together. You, in the title, we've said we're going to focus particularly today on implications for soft tissue. So where should we start with that? What should we be aware of if we are identifying? Well, actually, no, before we do that, how do you identify? In your experience, you have lots of people doing your courses. Do you think it's a question that's being asked enough? As in, are you currently in the menopause, or what stage of it are you in the menopause transition? Or do you think it's being glided over and therapists are not considering it?
Yeah, therapists aren't considering it. I know definitely in every piece of education that I've done, nobody, you know, that's not part of the screening form. And obviously now we are in, you know, the spotlight is on menopause, and now that we get a chance to change that conversation, and definitely within my business, you know, that conversation is changing. That course that Melissa Bond did is a level 3 entry level qualification through a female lens. It's for professionals who want that first step, who are going to be primarily working with women. So we speak to what is changing in women's body right through the perinatal journey to the postmenopausal journey, as well as, you know, the PIR and the STR and all the other METs. But we have to speak to the changes in their endocrine system that then impact their connective tissue system, because that's actually pretty huge. And you don't know what you don't know. And, you know, I'm including myself in that, because, 20 years ago, when this was not an issue for me, I was as well possibly one of those just kind of skating over that, still putting on the bed heater for a 50-year-old woman.
Mm-hmm.
Bad move,
Do you think that's one of the reasons why it's not addressed? Is because obviously there's a lot of therapists out there, all the guys to start off, but a lot of the girls are younger and they're not going for themselves, so they just don't even consider it. If it's something like menstruation and that sort of thing and things linked with that, then there's kind of that associative and they know what it's like. But with the menopause, you don't know it until you're there, like you just said.
Yeah. Or maybe you don't really care about it until you're there. And hopefully what will happen is actually this conversation that we're having now, it will continue to flourish and grow. And then people who are now 30 and 40, they will, like me, still be here into their 50s and 60s. I don't think I will even want to be working still when I'm 60, but still, they'll be here when they're in menopause. And so then this conversation will be more normalized. And I think it's okay. We're catching up. We're catching up. Nothing kind of happens before it's time. But I just think that if we're having the menopause conversation now and women are in their 30s, well, then we'll definitely be having this in 20 years' time when those women are in the menopause years. Yeah.
Would you like to see, I mean, there's a lot of talk now, we were having a little mention off air, that a lot of the traditional syllabuses which people are doing is still very old fashioned. We're very much behind in a lot of respects with traditional exams which are putting people through as for sports massage, even sports degrees, depending on which university you've gone to. We've had professors saying, you know what, pick your university wisely, have a chat with the teachers, because a lot of them are just delivering old stuff. Would you like to see the menopause conversation kind of built into syllabuses? Do you think it should really put in there from an early level?
Oh, of course. This is nuts. We're talking about gluteal tendinopathies, plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendinosis, heel pain, de Quervain syndrome, frozen shoulder, fibromyalgia, back pain, hip pain, knee pain. Literally, that's the laundry list for things that are happening to postmenopausal women or women in the menopause transition because of estrogen depletion.
Okay, so we're getting into it now. So in the sense that if somebody comes to your clinic and they're suffering from any of those, which kind of covers a very broad spectrum, if you're not asking the right questions and linking it potentially to something which is to do with the transition, what could you be missing, or what advice could you be giving out or not giving out that could make a big difference if you did identify this?
Well, we sort of touched on this when we were talking before recording, in that just having somebody say to you, well, see, I had a gluteal tendinopathy. I was telling you off camera that I had breast cancer in 2020. Now, obviously, then you, to go through breast cancer treatment, then you have a shed load of radiation. And because it was the pandemic, I had my 25 doses of radiation in 5. Literally, you are on fire. And we all know that radiation is like it's a big dose of inflammation. You are literally hot, physically hot. And so obviously, well, not obviously, maybe some people can't see me. I'm menopausal, I'm 52. And then, so that's already an inflammatory state. We then add on 25 doses of radiation delivered in 5 massive doses. And I am literally a walking ball of inflammation. I then developed this gluteal tendinopathy, which then means I'm hobbling around as well as everything else. So if, obviously I could do my research for myself, but if I had gone for soft tissue therapy and I hadn't been who I am, and somebody says, oh, well, the reason possibly why you've got the gluteal tendinopathy is that A, you're menopausal, B, you've just been bombarded with the radiation, which increases inflammation. And then what I had done as well, when I was feeling a bit stronger, I'd been doing a workout, and the workout had involved curtsy lunges. Okay, so that's quite a stress on the lateral hip, isn't it? And just somebody saying to me, had I not known what I'd known, that, well, the radiation is inflammation and menopause is an inflammatory state. And if you haven't been doing a certain exercise regularly, and now you throw in something that's a bit challenging, it's going to be challenging to your body in a different way, then that could then cause that tendinopathy. And then the other thing that would have been just wonderful to hear, and guess what? And now, because of your inflamed state, this is possibly going to take longer to heal than any other injury you've ever had. So I'm going to ask you to be patient. I'm going to ask you to employ anti-inflammatory nutrition and lifestyle protocol, and do the exercises. And guess what? You'll come right eventually. But this will possibly be a long healer.
That's really interesting, because that's one of the things we've talked about before. You need to give the clients a true indication of how long it's going to take so they can estimate the journey. I think a lot of people feel like they're hot potatoes because no one's actually said, you know what, this is going to probably take 10 to 12 weeks before you're actually back to your chosen activity. If they were told that in the beginning, then they can start planning. It's when they get this,
And that's where I was actually, literally about 12 weeks. I had never been out for 12 weeks ever, but literally it took ages for me to get well. So I think that is really important, because if I was working with a sports therapist or a physio and they say, you know what, Jenny, this is going to take you like 12 weeks because you are literally the poster girl for inflammation right now. And do the exercises, do the homework, improve your sleep, your hydration, all of those, manage your stress. All of those are anti-inflammatory as well. So the lifestyle protocol, if somebody said that to me, that would be really, really helpful. And I'm not knowing what I had known, that 12 weeks would have been like murder for an active person.
So obviously, you're indicating how long it's going to take the person. What would you change? So you mentioned like the curtsy exercises, which for gluteal tendinopathy might be a bit controversial anyway, because you're kind of jabbing that hip bone into the tendon, whether you've got menopause or radiation or whatever. But how do you? So you're saying, to what extent? Obviously, it depends on the individual. But are you saying that you still give exercises, but really dial back on the load or the frequency? Or are you saying that in some cases, just a case of saying you need to rest this out and kind of not push your system at all? Or how do you decide?
Well, I'd definitely look at somebody's movement history. But I would possibly say that I did too much, because I was just a bit stressed out. We were in the pandemic. I had all of the other, had my illness going on, and I just wanted to work out. So I possibly did too much. But no, movement now becomes a complete non-negotiable in the menopause transition. There literally is no space to be sedentary here.
Right.
Because literally movement is literally the magic pill.
We're going to come back in that. We're going to talk about the magic pill in a second. We've got some questions coming through.
Yes.
And thanks, Pete, for the questions. This is great. It's opening up some nice admissions as well. I love this from Catherine Reimer. I'll read it out for people who listen to the podcast. Should there be certain questions we should ask on our forms prior to seeing our clients' patients? I ask about pregnancy, but never thought to ask questions regarding menopause. I think this is going to be common, Catherine, and thank you for your honesty. We're only as good as the questions that are on our kind of crib sheet. And eventually, once we ask the questions, they come naturally. But what sort of questions should you be asking or people be adding to their PAR-Qs until it becomes natural?
Yeah, actually, Catherine, and that's a huge question. Absolutely. We should be asking where a woman is in the menopause transition, because the estrogen deficiency or estrogen depletion will literally creates an inflammatory environment, and that then impacts um, um, the the response to exercise, the recovery to exercise, and also the chronologically, we then have a decline in collagen and elastin production. So all of those things then add up to the things like, I can see down below a comment from Leslie about frozen shoulder, or just women having stiff shoulders. So all of those kind of tendinopathy and what's his name? Thomas Myers says, are we aging, or are you just drying out? And I think that's a bit cruel, but what we find is that we get a lot of stiffness and a lot of sticky joints that then become painful, and we lose mobility and range of motion.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, great question, Catherine. Interesting.
Yes, so I would say yes, ask about where they are on that menopause journey. I would also ask, are they taking HRT? Because that will make a difference. And I would also ask, even if it's a woman in her 50s, I'd ask about her reproductive journey. So has she been pregnant? Has she birthed children? Does she have C-section scars? Did she have any pelvic injuries like episiotomies or tears during birthing? So all of those, so we know that all of that, all of those adhesions and fibrotic tissues, they don't kind of get switched off after the birth. Those will continue to develop and change and mutate throughout a woman's lifespan. So you could have somebody who had a baby 20 years ago who then develops, back pain, hip pain, because of the continued proliferation of that C-section scar tissue. That's important. So I would want to know, even if that woman's 50, 60, even 70, I want to know how many children she had, how she had them, and any scars, any tears. Yeah, absolutely.
There we go. So yeah, so lots of things. I mean, I love it. In 87 episodes, I think we've definitely added at least half a page to most people's kind of like question sheets. And that's what it needs to be. And this is one of the things about evolving, isn't it? There's nothing embarrassing about that, which is why I love Catherine asking the question, because it should be normal that we're trying to tweak, even if we've been in the industry for 10 years, the questionnaire should be changed as we sort of learn and put the weight of importance elsewhere. So yeah, great question, Catherine. Leslie Campbell. Yeah, go on, sorry.
No, Leslie says, I've lost count of the amount of menopausal women I see with sore shoulders. But I have to tell you, Leslie, when I was looking through the research, the amount of things that I saw saying menopause does not cause frozen shoulder. And then it says, who's affected by frozen shoulder? Women in ages 35 to 65, that's the menopause transition. And consequently, there just hasn't been the research, there isn't the data, but we, as you said, Leslie, we all see women in their 50s with achy, immobile, frozen shoulders.
That's interesting what you just said, because I mean, we know we've heard from with the other female health physiotherapists and pelvic health physiotherapists that the research is very limited and the studies are limited and needs to be more done. But you mentioned there that there was contradicting evidence. So what's that? What's that all? Why is that? Why do you think? What's that about? Is it because the data is just not done in a realistic way, or they're ignoring populations, or what's going on with that, do you think?
All right, bit controversial. I think
great. We love
if
controversy.
women were doing the research, we would have found the link, and we would be writing that up.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted.
Come on.
Yeah, that's great. No? So this, do you think, is one of the problems? A lot of the research has been done by guys, and they've missed. Go on, you can say it.
Yeah, for time immemorial. For time immemorial. The research is done by guys on guys. A lot of the education is written by men. A lot of the education is attended by men. You know, it will change, but the thing is, you don't get many women my age still in the industry as educators, and that's kind of it, really. So I think it'll always be male dominated, to be honest. But I think women get to a certain age and you just think you have better things to do than sort of sit in the cut and thrust of business. But
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the nature nurture thing, isn't it? It's whether, yeah, exactly as you said. But it's getting better, isn't it? I mean, with the running industry, you know, it wasn't so long ago where they didn't even consider different injuries for female athletes compared to male athletes. It's only once you had kind of fantastic running researchers getting involved that suddenly it was like, hold on, we need to sample these populations and look at gender differences. And it's the same in lots now. Some fantastic scientists getting involved in sleep and nutrition and all these things. So
yes, absolutely. And I'm not bagging men. I'm just saying
can do that.
That's factual. We're
Yeah.
just speaking about the fact of where we are.
Right, I'm just going to refresh this page because the comments are frozen on that a little bit. Catherine, I love your comment, but I just need to refresh this for a second. Let's reload that. There we go. I should hide that message from the screen. There we go. So let's have a look here. This is fantastic questions coming in here. So yeah, future family fitness. Let's bring that up here if you're okay with some more questions, Jenny. So hi, Nina here. Hi, Nina. Thanks for joining us. Are we saying that during menopause, we are generally prone to more inflammation? So all soft tissue problems, or is there a list that comes up more often?
Yes. Menopause is an inflammatory state. Estrogen decline then leads to an increase in inflammation, systemic inflammation. Yes.
Okay, so it's always to take into account that there's going to be double trouble. If is it linked to, like, for example, the gluteal tendinopathy or the sore shoulders? Are you more prone to certain injuries? I don't know whether any studies have been done, or is it just anything you overdo, you're more likely to suffer from the consequences? So you just got to be a bit more careful.
Well, I couldn't see anything that spoke to certain injuries being more prevalent, but there is an increase in any condition that is underpinned by inflammation. So rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, and definitely a lot of fibromyalgia as well.
Okay.
In that perimenopause to post-menopause transition. Yeah.
Very interesting. Leslie Campbell's come back with, let's read it out for people who can't see the screen. But Leslie Campbell says, but also I'm absolutely positive they would find some degeneration in my shoulder if they took a scan, but I know it's hormones. So yeah, we've talked about this as well, isn't it? And this is a good point, actually. Well done, Leslie. Yeah. If you weren't considering the menopause, you probably go down the traditional route, getting a scan, they find some degeneration and they say that's the reason for it. So they would find a false kind of correlation and not address the real problem. Is it a problem? Is there any solutions? We've got a problem here.
Yeah.
What can we do? You mentioned dietary changes.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
So in our education, we're very focused on, information about HRT. And definitely if your estrogen is being depleted, and I say that it's being depleted naturally because who wants to be fecund and possibly pregnant when you're 55? Nobody. So there's a natural and understandable decline. But if you were to take HRT, I did actually pull up because I did obviously a presentation, and there's a great bank of study that shows things like the heel pain and the and the plantar fasciitis and many of those issues that we talked about being corrected or improved when women take HRT. So HRT and replenishing your estrogen is, for many women, a great solution. But then, combating that inflammation, that systemic inflammation, by applying an anti-inflammatory nutrition and lifestyle protocol is like a big deal. There's so much we can do for ourselves, and that involves, movement, hydration, improving your sleep hygiene, less stress. All of those things are catabolic and inflammatory to the system. So paying big attention to obviously nutrition as well, and in all just taking really super care of yourself. That will ease a lot of the issues that women experience. But then there are also like supplements beyond HRT as well. There's quite a lot of science about increasing omega fatty acids, magnesium, vitamin D3 and K2, and even supplementing collagen as well, and vitamin C to improve connective tissue health. Yeah.
There's based on what you're saying, there's a question here which kind of crosses over from Becky that's nice. Is there anything you can do before the transition starts to make the effect less, especially if you're already suffering from some kind of inflammatory ailment before that stage in life?
Yeah, well then actually there's quite a big movement at the moment to sort of not be trying to close the stable door after the horse has bolted, but for women to be having this mindset, this anti-inflammatory lifestyle mindset in the peri-menopause years. So in your 30s, and start thinking about that then as a means as better, having a better post-menopausal journey. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So looking at early on, is there any way, and again, I might be showing my ignorance here, but is the age that these transitions are going to start, the different stages, is it sometimes genetic? Are you likely to follow kind of your mother or grandmother, or is there any way you can tell when they're going to start in life, or is it totally dependent of what's happened to other members of your family?
Yeah, there is actually quite a lot of research as to your menopausal symptoms and when they actually begin. And unfortunately, women that didn't have kids, so I'm a nulliparous, I didn't have children, my son is adopted, so that seems to be against one in terms of your experience of menopause as well. And there seems to be some correlation between how your mother experienced menopause and how you will experience menopause. So there seems to be some correlation, but I think epigenetics, what you do with your body, overrides any kind of genetic link to your mother.
Sounds very interesting. How do you find, one thing I often ask when we're giving out new information like this and kind of evolving as practitioners, do you find that you have to kind of explain to people scope of practice and not giving advice based on what you ask questions? And how do you know when you need to actually send this person to a specialist depending on their replies, and who would you send them to?
Well, I think if somebody asked you, should they take HRT? I would definitely say it was out of scope of practice to give them a definitive answer. With everything I know, I would not give somebody a definitive answer. I would say you have to go to a specialist, and that information has to be bespoke to you and your history. Yeah, so I definitely feel that giving anybody information about HRT is most likely out of our scope of practice. I definitely think, though, there's a conversation about nutrition and the basics of anti-inflammatory nutrition and lifestyle, that I think that's totally within the scope of practice of a soft tissue therapist. We work with the body. How could we never have an opinion on what ideal and supportive nutrition is? I think every soft tissue within all of my courses, there's nutrition that's supportive nutrition for soft tissue health, or there's always that component of every single course. I believe that we can't say that we're part of the wellness industry or the health industry and never talk about whether somebody is dehydrated or not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think. And I don't think that's giving nutrition advice. That's kind of, I think that's just good housekeeping. I think that's literally common sense. If somebody says, yeah, I never drink water, and then as we're working on them, we feel that they're really like sticky and the tissue feels dehydrated. Why ever would we not say that? Why ever would we not bring that to their attention, that actually part of them feeling free and mobile in their body is related to their hydration status?
So what would be some red flags where somebody comes in and you start this conversation and they kind of say some things because you've opened Pandora's box a little bit, and they thought, oh, I'm really impressed that you asked me about this. Here we go. What are some of the things you need to look out for? You go, right, it's interesting you should say this. Here's a card, or go and have a chat with this person here, because I don't want to leave today and ignore this. It's worth a conversation. So what's some of the red flags which would stimulate that recommendation?
Well, when we're talking connective tissue and the changes during this menopause transition, well, they can also affect the genitourinary tract, women's pelvic health. And so, say if you had a client and she was confirmed as being menopausal, and then she said, oh gosh, yeah, I'm not sleeping well at the moment. And you said, oh, why aren't you sleeping well? Oh, because I'm getting up 3 times a night for a wee. Okay, for me, that's just like, boom. Okay, you do realize that, your bladder function changes, your pelvic health changes during the menopause transition. And actually, there are specialists, there are women's health physiotherapists who can help you with that. I think many people wouldn't even know that there's such a thing as a women's health physiotherapist at all. And so, yeah, that would be an ideal here's some information of where you can locate one, both via the NHS or privately. Yeah, I think things like that, pelvic health in the menopause, somebody might only mention that because, I'm up 4 times a night, for a wee.
And these are things which a lot of people, I remember we were talking to Emma Brockwell, she kind of suggested that she thinks a lot of harm can be done by these adverts with various liners or devices which kind of allow this person to continue with this kind of like incontinence, wherever it is. And she says that can, and the adverts all out there, oh, don't worry, wear this and I'm free as a bird and I can do what I like. And she's thinking, no, you need to go and talk to somebody. Don't just kind of like fan the fire. So do you find that can happen sometimes with menopause and the transition, that there's kind of loads of buy this and you'll be fine, where really they should go and talk to someone?
Yeah, totally. Well, there's industries created to encourage women to keep buying the product instead, putting a plaster, I always say putting a plaster over cancer, instead of actually going and dealing deeply with the issue. But also many of the things that affect women, cause a lot of shame and embarrassment as well. And there definitely in terms of the menopause transition, a feeling for many women of, God, my body is like breaking down. I'm in bits, nothing seems to work well anymore. And are wanting to keep that to oneself as opposed to going and seeking help.
And there's an awful lot, I guess, again, because people who are going through the menopause and the various stages, they're going to feel like, I just need a massage. I need to lie down for an hour. I need to get away from it. And they're kind of like thinking that will sort it out, when really, if they're asked the right questions, then they could actually be given some direction. You need to go and talk to this person. We're going to see them a lot of the time, first of all, aren't we? Because we're famous for kind of making people feel good.
Yeah, but actually, I have to say, to anyone who is working at the moment, having and attracting and having an offering that is pointed directly to women who are a bit stressed and a bit tired and a bit meat in the sandwich. A lot of women in the 50s have got 20-year-olds that can't or won't leave home, and then they've got aged parents. They are very much squeezed. Having a service whereby you point that to them, a come lie down service, I think that's incredibly powerful. That's hugely valuable. You're doing like a service to the nation.
Great.
A solid problem solving, if necessary, therapeutic, deeply healing soft tissue therapy. I mean, I have literally one of those every Friday for 90 minutes at 1:30.
Counting the days.
A service to the nation, that is. And there are definitely menopausal women that are going to pay for that. So
it's fantastic to know. But they don't realize that they could benefit from it. So massive target audience out there. You need to be directing your efforts towards people. There's another business card. Gary Benson's famous for saying, get a business card for each of your clients to show your USP and hand it out the right places. So now you need the Meno Transition business card.
Absolutely. So all of my my students, and I encourage them to do a service that's pointed at busy moms. So a nice little daytime massage while kids are at school. Definitely the over 50 woman. Absolutely.
Great advice. And of course, and that's exactly what your courses do. They can educate therapists to bolt on to what they've already learned traditionally to be able to offer these services and have confidence in delivering something that's going to help.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen Affinity Bodyworks, clinical soft tissue therapist. Very late to the party after work, I'll catch the recording. From my own experience, HRT has helped my grumbling shoulder issues. I always question around hormones and direct to reputable sources. And absolutely. And in my Facebook group, we have a list of HRT specialists, and you're only allowed to add to that list if you physically have had direct experience of that specialist. So it's not just kind of, I hear somebody there can help. But absolutely always go with a personal recommendation. You must know the professional that you're referring to, and I think have experience of them. I think that's important.
Great advice. Just pointing out here for people who can't see the comments, Gary Benson has just mentioned here, there is a future web chat planned with nutritional specialists talking about inflammatory responses, histamine and intolerances. So that is on its way. Becky says, very much looking forward to that, Gary. Question here from Louise Aker. Louise asks, would a woman in her 70s still be going through post-menopause? That's kind of linked to what you said at the beginning, but I think I know what your answer is going to be to that.
Yes, because hormones don't kind of just switch off. And I remember speaking to, and being quite stunned, speaking to my mother-in-law, who's 83, who said she still had the odd hot flash. And I was like, you are kidding me. So
we're just winding you up.
No,
that's what mother-in-laws do.
She's not that type of person.
Oh, right.
But yeah, so there isn't just like an off switch. You're not just suddenly dead to the world. Oh, I'm 70, boom. So there are still fluctuations, albeit less dramatic.
Leslie's come back here with a comment. Leslie says, see, if we looked at the whole picture and educated from puberty, then women would be more in tune with their cycle, which would then lead onto later life.
Exactly. So, there's a big movement as well at the same time of this menopause literacy to there's also a movement to support period literacy and menstrual literacy as well. And I saw Leslie Campbell writing that Diane Danzebrink, now she's done a lot of work, Diane has, to help improve legislation around menopause, especially in the workplace. And yes, so she does consultations, but also her website, which is Make Menopause Matters, also has a lot of information, as does the Menopause Society as well.
Okay, we'll make sure that goes into the show notes. Any important links we mentioned during here will be in the show notes. And Leslie mentions an app here, Fit Our Woman app. Are you familiar with that particular app?
No, I'm not.
Apps, can apps be useful? We know that, I mean, last week, Deb's Thurlow Rowley was talking about Get a Period app, follow it, see any irregularities that are happening. It's really important. Can the same thing be said for when you're going through menopause? Are there useful apps out there you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, but I think having an awareness of where you are, and once your periods have stopped, they have stopped generally. But things like if you had not bled for a year and a half and then your periods resume, or you have a bleed, that very much needs to be checked out. So that needs clinical attention. So being aware of these kind of, occult bleeds, that's, it can be a sign of something more serious.
Talking of clinical attention, Leslie doesn't hold back. Leslie says, I bought my Menopausal Vagina book for one of my 70-year-old clients. There we go. Can't say I've read it. Is that a famous book on the shelf?
Absolutely. And actually, that's a really good book. That is actually My Menopausal Vagina. And it's about a woman who had a significant amount of bother and has done a great service to the planet in sharing her bother and educating a lot of women. And I think, the more women who sort of buck the trend for being ashamed, or just keeping these issues to themselves, the more we can just speak out, the more we help others. Or most of my work, the pelvic floor program, after that hysterectomy at 40, I became incontinent, and that was why I made that program, because as a soft tissue therapist, thank God, I had a deeper awareness of my body. And I was like thinking, I wonder if these pelvic floor exercises where I'm just clenching and squeezing, I wonder if I should be doing something more. And I didn't have the language before. I didn't have the language then, which was we needed to integrate the pelvic floor to the rest of the body. We needed to include respiration, we needed to include movement, we needed to include movement of the complete fascial system. I didn't have that language, but I definitely thought squeezing and clenching one's undercarriage was not going to cut it if I wanted to then go and run.
Right.
And so then I created a movement-based pelvic floor exercise program.
Let's talk a little bit about that. An idea, share some of the exercises, or is it very variable depending on the client? But what's involved in these movement-based
pelvic floor exercises? So there is a continuum, and I call it the Kegel continuum. So we start off with a Kegel, which is locate, say, your anterior pelvic floor. So also think posterior. Imagine you want to stop passing gas. Find that mechanism. So it's like a squeeze of the anus, and then you kind of lift up from the anus. Okay, so we've got that. And then we need to move along a continuum. So we have first the Kegel, then add a visualization, because we know things work better when we can visualize. So I don't know, I've got I can see a friend there called blueberries and jellyfish. So imagine like a jellyfish, you want to sort of, there's that pulse and that lifting up. So maybe add that visualization. Then we add respiration to the pelvic floor activation. So as we're activating the pelvic floor, that tension and that lift, add an exhale with that. And then we add fascial tension. So now we bring in the biotensegrity model and we create some tension by pulling a resistance band. So we're speaking to the abdominals via the arm lines. And then we add some functional movement. So now we add a coming out of a squat while we pull the band, exhale, lift the pelvic floor. And then we have a pelvic floor that is prepared for movement.
Real movement, yeah, rather than, yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. And all of this is available on the courses, is there? You put a little bit of movement into everything, or there are movement specific courses you offer?
We have, there's movement specific courses, and then we have Holistic Core Restore, which is a pelvic floor, integrated pelvic floor program. And even in the new massage courses that are being created. So there's this information in the scar therapy course, because again, if we're rehabbing scars, then we are abdominal scars for women, then we are rehabbing the core, which means we are rehabbing respiration as well. And so as part of those courses, we tie it all up together. We reintegrate the whole core.
Do you get many guys on your courses, and do you want them?
Same answer. No, that's not true. No, I don't get many guys on the courses. And yes, I do want them. I do. I want them to feel that if they are working with women's bodies, then they need to know about women's bodies. And in a cruder sense, if you're going to take women's monies, you should know but you should know about their bodies. Is that controversial?
No, I think that's okay. You get away with that. Yeah, I'm sure that's fine. I think that could be read.
No, but honestly, though.
Yeah, no, it's fine. No, it's true. I think
you
linking,
take my money. You need to know about my body.
Yeah.
You need to know how my body is different from your body.
Definitely. So I mean, it's because we're always talking about, generalizing, but I think guys probably only the first few times are going to find it a little bit weird asking these questions, particularly if they don't know the comeback. It's all very well saying, "Oh, are you reading it out in the menopause at the moment?" They go, "Yes." Why? And you're like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm just saying what's on my PARQ. I don't know. I didn't realize you're going to say yes." So it's really useful if they do get some kind of follow-up to being able to answer the question if the door is opened. So I guess they could get that from the course, no? From your courses.
Yeah, but are you in the menopause transition? Are you in menopause? Are you post-menopausal? For sure, if somebody is nearly 50, over 50, they're possibly, that's going to be true for them. And there definitely will be some estrogen decline. There definitely will be some increase in systemic inflammation. And so you can then start to deduce that possibly that heel pain and the deterioration of somebody's fat pad in their heel is linked to that endocrine status. I don't really think that you need to now become a menopause specialist. I think it's just about acknowledging that a change in a woman's endocrine system impacts her connective tissue systemically.
How do you avoid it turning into the woman who's come to see you feeling kind of rejecting her body and the stuff she's going through, and adding to a sensation that my body's just giving up on me? I'm going to have this inflammation all my life now. How do you manage to cancel that when you're highlighting the fact that this pain in your heel is because of the hormonal changes, etc.? It's like I'm looking for a silver lining. Yeah, you got heightened inflammation, and that's what they call it in the heel pain. And it's it's going to be there until the day you die. But guess what? Lower heating bills. I don't know. What are you going to say? There's got to be something which is going to kind of. It hasn't got to be forever. There's loads of stuff you can do to make it better. Is it? Is that the idea? If you tackle it the right way.
Absolutely. So there then becomes there's a big conversation, and definitely in my world, there's a conversation about the menopause being a rites of passage, a normal occurrence in a woman's lifespan, and it is definitely a new epoch that requires a woman to kind of pause and take stock, and then begin again in a new way that supports these new needs of her body. So it's kind of like, if you are in this life phase and you still want to eat and drink like you're 25, we're going to have a problem, and in terms of like your sleep hygiene and your stress levels. So in my world, definitely we are revering this life phase. Yes, it's troublesome because modern life is fairly toxic. The environment, the food, the stresses, the unreasonable stresses that a woman of a certain age is under because of just the way we live and the way the world is. But there is still a place where we can think of menopause as actually a really powerful space to be. I was saying to you before we switched on the recording, women over 50 are both powerful, terrifying, and dangerous, because suddenly you come into your own. There's so much goodness across the tracks here. There's so much goodness, and yeah, there are certain things that can be bothersome, but those bothersome things, I believe, are pushing us to take deeper care of ourselves. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So,
That's
and it's
exactly
when
what I
we
was going
lack
for.
that self-care that we seem to have experienced the negative symptoms more.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's exactly what I was kind of like, I needed, because it must be a really troublesome time. And we always worry about, I think, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Becky from Massage Collective, Becky de Mornay, who kind of said, every time a client comes to see us, when they leave, we want them to feel more confident with their body, more robust, to understand how strong the human body and how magnificent it is in terms of recovery and how magical it is. As long as we give it the right load and we look after it, it's incredibly strong, stronger than steel in half the places of the body. So yeah, I was just worrying about recognizing the menopause, and we've talked a lot about kind of how it can interfere with, it can cause inflammation, make you more vulnerable in a certain extent. But yeah, what you've just said, beautiful. If you need like a follow-up script because you've got sad-looking people in the clinic, just go back to this and let that minute or and a half was beautiful. That's exactly what you'd need. Very powerful. I like the pause thing as well. That's not that obvious as well. It is a pause, which means it is a transition. It's not going downhill. It's just changing.
It's a new epoch.
Yeah, I like it. And the power and beautiful, really nice. I can see that as being a really important thing, which wouldn't come naturally until people have heard you say it and put it the way you did. So really good. Right, we've got time for a few more questions. We have gone over 9. I
love Leslie Campbell. She said, get whatever shit is troubling you sorted out before you hit perimenopause, because that's where the will keep you awake at 3 a.m. lol. Well, actually, yeah, I'm lolling right along. That is so true. It is so true. It is a time for reckoning. I have done so much sifting and sorting and getting rid of in this phase. But it definitely is a phase where you want to be traveling light. It's definitely a time of throwing off excess. Yeah, I'm so with you, Leslie. Right on, sister.
There you go. Powerful. Leslie must be over 50. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything. I don't know how old you are, Leslie, but you sound like a powerful woman. Dangerous, powerful woman. Louise Akers said, this is amazing knowledge and information. Thank you. I'm hoping to work more in women's health, given how many women I treat, and I want to help. Beautiful. Well, if that's your takeaway from this, then our work is done. That's great to hear.
Well, actually, is Gary still here? I'd like to put Gary on the spot. Is there room for STA to accredit a women's health specialist certification?
Okay, well, Gary,
Probably going to pretend that he's gone to eat his
no. Gary's actually said he's going to give you a call. He
Is
says
he?
down here, I'll bring it up. I definitely think we need a return visit. I'll be in touch with you, Jenny, Friday at 1:30.
Oh, all right. Okay then. I
He's
thought I seen
listening. You're not doing anything else Friday at 1:30, are you?
I think. Oh, get up! No. That's my massage time. I'm not.
You
I'm
see,
not
that's what he's
available at
getting at.
1:30 on Friday.
No way you're getting in there, Gary, I'm afraid.
But I do think that this is important because a lot of the therapists, male and female, are working with women, and there's that whole journey from the perinatal phase, pregnancy, postnatal, but that you might think, okay, I would only do that education if I really wanted to specialize. But I don't know. I think everybody's working with those over 50 women.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't really got a label on them. They're not pregnant, they're not postnatal, but everybody's working with those women, and everybody's dealing with women who've got frozen shoulder and heel pain and knee pain and the gluteal tendinopathies. And it's just like, why is there not a certificate, a women's health certificate attached to, these sports therapy certifications?
That's a good point. Gary will be in touch. Yeah, I'm sure.
He will, or I'll be in touch.
Or else,
I won't wait for Gary to come to me. I think I'll be in touch.
His address is on the website, so yeah, you know where he lives. Becky's made a lovely comment at the end here to draw it to a close. I question how I am female in my 30s and yet know very little about the menopause. Education must change. It's a good one, Becky. It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, but don't feel bad, Becky, because when I was in my 30s, I was working with women who were going through menopause, and just saying, "Do you want the heated blanket?" And they're going, "No," and wondering why they wouldn't want the heated blanket. I think we've all done that, but if you're asking the question now in your 30s, that's great. I never asked that question until I was in my late 40s.
Fantastic. Okay, look, it's 9:10. I promised I'd let you go at 9. Gary has said, Jenny, I have an idea which I'd like to run by you anyway. I'll DM you tomorrow. So Gary's taking it very seriously. And there you go. Right, Jenny. So if people have been listening to the podcast and they want to get in touch with you or read, is your website the best kind of portal to contact you? And
yeah, or just you're allowed to DM me.
Oh yeah, you can DM.
Or Burrell Education. Just send me a message, and if anybody, we do have a menopause course, of course. But if you've got any questions or you want a signposting to where you can get help for your clients, then I'm really happy to do that. Yeah, just send me.
And what about this third age woman? Tell me a little bit of that before I'll let you go.
Oh, I love that. So this is our bestseller at the moment. It's an online certification for any wellness professional who is working with women in the transition. And if you are also a movement professional, then that other course that comes along with it is a Meno Strength, is a movement course. But ultimately, the third age woman is very much about anyone serving women who really wants to know how to address the issues of women going through that transition.
Sounds good.
Deep
Sounds
and
good.
thorough.
Fantastic. Okay then. All right. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for giving up your time. Gary's going to be in contact with you. I'm going to say goodbye to the people here who have joined us live, but you stick around. Don't be clicking any buttons yet, because I'd like to say thank you to as well once we go off air. Melissa, oh yeah, the Facebook, I've had a dip in and out of theirs, and Melissa has said the Burrell Education Facebook group is fantastic, so pretty active on Facebook. Becky Owl says, I'll be booking for your course, one of your courses, Jenny. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cochrane, thanks for joining us, Anne. Good to see you. Wonderful session. Thank you very much. So there we go. As always, thanks, people, for joining us live, especially as tonight was on YouTube and not on Facebook. I don't think it made much difference, actually. I think, well, let me know, actually, in the comments, or email me whether YouTube was difficult for you or whether it was just as the same. It's always interesting to know which of the platforms you find easier to join us through, but it all seemed to work very well. So thank you for your patience. We will be back next week. Keep an eye on social media, whether it's myself at One Chat Live or the STA, which is generally the UK_STA on Instagram, or Sports Therapy Association on Facebook. Follow us if you're not an STA member, and you can keep in contact with what's coming up. We'll be back next week at the same time, 8 o'clock on the Tuesday, continuing our month of women's health. So look out for details of that. But as far as now, I'll just say once again, thank you to Jenny Burrell of Burrell Education for giving us the time. And we'll see you all next week, people. So